Oh, how I love to love the 1994 ABC miniseries The Stand. Written by Stephen King, directed by Mick Garris. Originally, this was supposed to be a feature-length movie in the 80s directed by George Romero, but that would never come to fruition. The Stand is about a man-made plague that's let loose on accident by the United States military, and it kills a little over 99% of the population. Everybody gets wiped out. They get sick. They start choking on their own vomit. The government's lying to everybody. And as that progresses, we follow along our surviving characters. These surviving characters are met with dreams and visions of an old black lady playing guitar that makes her own bread. She's 108 years old in the book, and I think in the series she's 106. Mother Abigail. Or they're also visited by Randall Flagg, who's an evil guy. He's not really the devil, but he seems to be well acquainted with the devil or evil shit, if you know what I'm saying. Randall Flagg, he's an evil guy. He visits them in their dreams too, and he scares them. And as the survivors decide whether or not they're going to go to Nebraska or Boulder, Colorado with Mother Abigail or Randall Flagg over in Las Vegas, Party Town, USA, we kind of see how these characters develop, how their relationships change, their personal grievances start to affect their living situations, and they basically try to rebuild the civilization. Fuck this. And they slowly start to rebuild civilization, whether it's the authoritarian civilization in Las Vegas under Randall Flagg's thumb or under Mother Abigail's guide in Boulder, Colorado at the Free Zone. And one of the things that surprised me about this Stand, I just read it for the first time or listened to the audiobook for the first time fairly recently, is how biblical this story is and how religious the whole thing feels. And because it's a Stephen King story, I assumed when there were religious themes that it would almost be sort of like poking at those religious themes and maybe like looking at them in a negative light. But really it lifts up the idea of religion and kind of having a moral compass and whatnot, which I thought was really interesting. And there is a lot of nuances there between the characters that are considered good and the characters that are considered bad in the book anyway. And the miniseries, from what I'm seeing so far, not so much, but we'll get into that a little more as we go through this. I don't want to go back to the book all the time because I think I'm going to have to do a separate video comparing the miniseries to the book altogether. But I think it's going to be unavoidable to talk about the book while we're going into the miniseries. So that's a really simple, summed up way of explaining what The Stand is about, what the story's about. I feel like that kind of touches on a lot of the little themes in the bigger picture. I did watch the miniseries before reading the book. I remember watching the miniseries when I was a little kid. It came out in 1994. I was 4 years old when it came out, so I'm assuming it was probably after that. I'm assuming I was at least 7 or 8 or something like that. I can't really remember for sure, but this is one of the Stephen King miniseries that didn't really stick with me. There's really only like a couple of things about this that I remembered, and I never really went back to it and rewatched it. I haven't watched it as an adult or anything like that, and I've never read the book before up until this last year. So the whole thing was pretty new to me, to be honest. There's a couple scenes that, like I said, that stood out to me that we'll get into. Most of them are just like the creepy, evil hospital scenes. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But for some reason, those always stuck with me. And I couldn't even really remember. I knew it was about like a plague or a sickness or something like that, but I couldn't remember exactly what it's about. I kind of remember Randall Flagg too, like the evil guy. And I remember Gary Sinise, and that's about it, just because Gary Sinise always stands out. And we're just going to be talking about part 1 and part 2. I believe this is The Plague and Dreams are these 2 chapters of the miniseries. From what I've seen of them so far, comparatively, I would say, obviously the book is better. You know what I mean? It's just I feel like there's not too many cases where the book's not going to be better, because really the biggest thing about this story are the characters. And in the book, you just get so much character development, and that's really what it spends most of its time on, I would say, is just getting to know this big cast of characters. After watching these parts in the miniseries, I almost feel like it's best if you would have read the book first before getting into this, because they kind of skim over a lot of the interesting things about these characters. I mean, I feel like they still do them justice. They do a really good job of like certain characters anyway. Like I think Stu's really well done. But some of the other ones are kind of lacking. Like honestly, like even some of the other main characters like Larry, Harold, Franny. I'm going to kind of go through each character and how their story develops in these two parts. And that's kind of, I think, how we're going to break this down, because I don't know how else to do it other than to go beat by beat. But the story really cuts around so much that it would feel a little jumbled, I think, to kind of go beat by beat throughout the whole movie for 6 hours. It's a 6 hour long movie, by the way. It's probably why I never watched it again, to be honest. I lost a lot of faith in these miniseries after the Shining miniseries. I remember watching that one and Rose Red. Obviously, I love the It miniseries. That one was one of my favorite movies as a kid. But I think after the Shining miniseries, I was just like, maybe we don't need to watch any of these anymore. Maybe there's better things out there to do with our time. So let's start this thing off. The first character we're going to see here is a guy named Campion. Basically, we see that the plague is accidentally released in this military facility. This guy fucking realizes what's going on, and he grabs his family and he books it the fuck out of there. He grabs his wife and his daughter, hits the car, just barely beats the gate before it closes, and he drives all the way to East Texas, where he runs into Stu Redman, who's going to be one of our main characters in this book, the big dog, I would say, overall. So this guy, Campion, he's sick as fuck. He's driving towards the gas station where Stu and his friends are hanging out. He's getting ready to crash into the damn gas pumps, and Stu's like, hey, turn off the gas pumps, you know. And this is just the first example we get of Stu being calm, cool, and collected, and kind of always knowing what to do. You know, when most people would panic in that situation, everyone else is like, whoa, what the fuck's that guy doing? He's gonna run into the gas pumps and kill us all. Stu's just like, hit the pumps, and he fucking flicks a switch, saves the day, just like the big dick hero that he's going to be throughout the whole story. So they run out there, they find this guy, he's sick as fuck, and he's oozing, his neck's all swollen up, and his family's in the car, and they're dead. And he's still like, you gotta save my family, you gotta save them, you know what I mean? And I don't think he even realizes that they're toast. But then the thing that caught me in the miniseries is he immediately starts talking about the Dark Man to Stu. He's just like, yeah, when we were driving here, there was a guy in the back seat. We weren't alone the whole time. He was a dark man, you know what I'm saying? And if I had my soundboard right now, I'd do like a sting there to really emphasize like, this dark man's gonna be important. Stu, you're going to want to remember this dark man, okay? He's evil. He's going to be a big deal in the rest of the book, or the movie, the miniseries, the ABC miniseries from 1994. So then we see the next day, I believe we see Stu and all of his friends. They get rounded up by the military. They're like, hey, you motherfuckers were exposed to some sick shit. You're going to need to come with us. And so they take them to do tests on them and stuff like that. And basically, slowly but surely, all of Stu's friends die in this military testing facility. It's like a Center for Disease Control type of situation. Between all that, we do have a minor character pop in, but a major person in horror history. A fella named Joe Bob Briggs. I'm familiar with the guy. Joe Bob Briggs is in this movie, and he goes there and he kind of warns them like, hey, there's been some military trucks in town, you know what I'm saying? And the whole time, the guys that are talking to him are sneezing and coughing and shit. I'm not going to even fucking talk about this bullshit right now. I'm going to cut all this out and we'll skip right ahead. So Stu, he's in the sick facility. They're testing him, and for whatever reason, he ain't getting sick. Stu ain't sick. So they're like, Stu, what's going on, bud? How are you not sick? All your friends are fucking dying. There's some really great scenes where like you just see the doctors taking notes as his friends are dying, and it just kind of shows how like cold and cut and dry this whole situation is. Like they realize that shit is getting out of hand incredibly fast, and like there's no time for anything besides just what's going to stop this and why is this affecting everyone in such a lethal way. And they kind of mention how like the disease is going to mutate and people are going to think that they're getting better, and then they'll basically take a turn for the worse and die pretty quickly after that. So it's very scary, very intense plague. It's also known as Captain Trips, is what they call the plague. I guess I should have mentioned that in the synopsis that I did earlier. Synopsis. So where do we go from there? So if we're sticking with Stu, basically he stays at this facility until all the doctors are dead. He doesn't realize this though. He's just kind of like hanging out in this room the whole time. There's a great moment where the doctors come in to try to do more tests on Stu, but he won't let them. And they're kind of like, come on, Stu, we need your blood and stuff like that. We got to look at your blood. But he threatens them by like grabbing the edge of their suit. And he's like, I'm going to rip your fucking suit open and cough in your face and shit if you take any more of my blood. And they're like, oh no, let us out of here and stuff like that. It gets to the point where there's only the main doctor left alive. He goes in there with a gun and he's going to just kill Stu because he's like, I don't honestly know why he's going to kill him. I guess he's just like, he's all sick and shit now too. And he's thinking, if I'm going to die, you're going to die too, I guess, bud. I don't like that you're not sick. We can't figure out why you're not sick. They even I can't remember if they tell him in the miniseries, but in the book, I remember they tell him that they inject him with Captain Trips, like straight up into his bloodstream, and he still doesn't get sick. So it's just an immunity that really is only explained by the hand of God, which is something else that we'll get into much later on, I'm sure, in parts 3 and 4, or definitely in part 4. But the hand of God has a lot to do with this, and God in general, and the Bible and religion. Like I said, very religious story. So Stu fucks this guy up. He pulls the gat on him, but Stu's too quick, and he flicks the TV on behind the guy to like distract him, and then he beats the shit out of him and takes the gun from him, leaves and shit like that, and Stu shoots him because the guy comes back and attacks him again. And as he's leaving the facility, this is one of the scenes that always stuck with me as a kid because he's running through this hospital. At this point, he doesn't realize how bad things have gotten. I mean, he probably has an idea if they're keeping him basically prisoner in this medical facility, but he's running through the halls and there's literally people just fucking dead as hell everywhere, just like leaning up against the walls with like their tongues hanging out and shit, and fucking blood's coming out of their eyes and ears and stuff like that. It's a nightmare scene. And so that always stuck with me. The part when he's running down the stairs, this guy just jumps up and he's like, hey, come down here and eat chicken with me, beautiful. And Stu like fucking Sparta kicks his ass off the stairs or something. That always stuck out with me just because it was such a weird scene, and the guy's like bleeding out of his eyes while he's saying it, and he's got like crust all over his mouth. And it's just like, yeah, you don't want that guy touching you for sure. Like whether he's sick or not, just kick that fucking guy down the stairs. And I think that more or less sums up Stu's part for episode 1. He might have a Mother Abigail dream in there somewhere, I believe, or maybe even like a Darkman dream. I feel like they're usually like a combination of Mother Abigail and Darkman dreams happening at the same time. But we'll get into that. There's plenty of that shit to talk about, trust me. Then we get Molly Ringwald as Franny Goldsmith, who is another one of the big dog main characters we got here. And there's a handful of them, 2 handfuls of them to be exact. God damn it. So Molly Ringwald, she's hanging out with her old ass dad. This is right as the plague's getting bad, right as Captain Trips is really busting a nut on everybody. Harold Lauder comes up, and Harold Lauder's another main guy. I don't think I need to say it anymore. And Harold Lauder comes up. Harold Lauder's just like, hey, Franny, I want to take you to a fucking date. I want to take you to Ingmar Bergman Movie Fest. And she's like, nah, no thanks, you little fucking dork. I'm going to go see REM. And in the book, I think Harold's supposed to be 16. He seems pretty young here, although I think he's probably a little older than 16, but he's kind of like he's a very egotistical writer, and he's just kind of like, Harold Lauder's an incel, like to a T. Is the best way to describe him. Just very stereotypical. The only big difference in the book and movie that I've seen so far in his character is that in the book, he starts out as like a big fucking fat guy, or a big fat kid, I guess. And he's just like, hates everybody and wishes everybody was dead and stuff like that. Not really, I guess. I guess in the book, he kind of does. Like he gets bullied a lot. But then after the plague hits and everybody dies, he says out loud that he wishes they weren't actually gone. So I thought that was interesting. Really great development there in Harold's character in the book, at least. Anyway, Molly Ringwald and her dad. Her dad is the guy from Scrubs, Dr. Kelso, I believe his name is. He's like the old doctor that's in charge of everything, not the mean doctor from Scrubs, but he's the guy that always like doesn't give a fuck, and he's really funny in Scrubs. And he's really good in this too, actually. But quickly we see that he's getting sick. Franny is taking care of him, but he dies, and she has to like stitch him up in a sheet and drag him down the stairs, and she buries him in the garden. And basically as she's doing this, Harold comes over and is like, yo, my parents are dead too, bud. Do you want to hang out and be best friends and stuff like that? And she's like, I guess so, Harold. I guess we can. But also, he's kind of like, also, I'd like to be your boyfriend and shit. And she's kind of like, no. She just says like, we'll always be friends, Harold. Friends, motherfucker. Not boyfriends and girlfriends, motherfucker. And he's kind of like, fuck. Even in the apocalypse, I can't get any fucking pussy. And I'll leave it. I'll put a pin in it there for Harold and then we cut over to Nick Andros. He's walking through this town. I can't remember. It's like Alabama or some shit. And he gets beat up by these guys. Locals, they beat the shit out of him. And it's one of the worst fight scenes I've ever seen in my life. Before we get into it, though, got to point out they chose Rob Lowe to play Nick Andros, which Nick Andros is deaf and dumb. He can't hear. He can't talk. And we got Rob Lowe playing him. And right away, I was kind of like, what the fuck? Why Rob Lowe? It's one of the oddest casting choices, I will say, in the miniseries. As this goes on, it didn't bother me as much. Like, I feel like he does a better job than I expected as the story goes on. But the introduction to Nick in the miniseries was not great for me. And maybe it's the fight scene that we see, but it kind of sucked because we see Rob Lowe, he's walking around these guys, they come to beat him up, and it's just like one of those really slow fight scenes where the guys are throwing punches, like where they're really rearing their hand back and they're like, here it comes, you deaf motherfucker, and then he like ducks it and kicks him in the nuts, but he kicks him in the nuts like he jumps both of his feet off the ground when he does the kick like a little kid would, and it's like, have you ever fucking kicked a ball before in your life, dude? Yeah, I'm sure you know how to kick somebody in the nuts better than that, but you know, it's very, very movie. It feels like they could have done a few more takes or maybe got like some stunt doubles in there or something, some stuntmen to do this shit, because it just looks goofy as hell. But the casting with Rob Lowe, my big problem with it is just like in the book, you would never guess they would get Rob Lowe to play this guy. Like you would think it would be somebody that's a little less traditionally handsome. Like Rob Lowe is almost like distracting because of the way he looks. And it's like, I don't think that doesn't sound like Nick Andros at all if you're reading the book and assuming like, who would play this guy? Gary Sinise is great. Molly Ringwald's doable as far as Franny goes. Like some of Molly Ringwald's performance like early on too was a little bit tough to get into. And I don't know if it's always her. Sometimes I feel like it's her performance, like they could have maybe done a few more takes with her, but sometimes I think it's like the way she's written in the miniseries, because Franny is another character that's like, really, you get this whole backstory with her where she finds out she's pregnant right away with her boyfriend Jesse, and she basically tells him like, I'm gonna have this baby with or without you, bud. And he's kind of like, oh shit, I don't really want to have a baby. So she's just like, fine, I'm doing this shit by myself. See you later, Jesse. See you never, fuckface. And then she never sees him again because he probably dies in the plague. But she kind of like takes all that in strides, like the character Franny. She shows to be a really strong character right away. The Franny we get in the miniseries is a little goofier. Like I feel like she has goofy moments in the book too, but they're rounded out nicely with those other qualities. Whereas in the miniseries, it's mostly just like, my fucking butt's got calluses on it. Oh shoot, and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, okay, that's all we're gonna get with her. Other than there are some really touching moments with her when her dad dies. There's a moment where she sings Amazing Grace while she's like sewing up his funeral shroud, and it's a pretty touching moment, honestly. So back to Nick Andros. He gets beat up by these guys. A doctor almost runs his head over, and they bring him to the prison where they're going to just find out what the fuck happened to him. So they take him to the sheriff. He explains who beat him up. The sheriff realizes, fuck, it's my brother-in-law that beat his ass. So they go and arrest him. Nick kind of helps the sheriff out while this is going on. The sickness is spreading. And then everybody gets sick and dies, basically. All the prisoners get sick. The doctor is still there, and he's like, hey, the fucking sheriff died. I'm going to go to my cabin in the mountains or some shit. Do you want to come with me? And he's kind of like, well, I got to take care of these prisoners, you know? And they're like, I'll see you later, Nick, motherfucker. It's a stupid idea, but here you go. And so Nick lets the guys out of prison, the ones that aren't. There's one guy that's stuck in prison because he's basically dead already, but he lets the other two guys out and they leave. And as Nick's leaving, he brings a gun with him and stuff like that. He grabs a sheriff gun. He sees that the doc has been killed. And I thought the doc just got sick and died, but he's like dead in his car. And we kind of find out that one of the bullies that beat up Nick, the main one, I think his name is Ray or something like that. I think he killed the doctor actually, which is pretty nuts. But then he attacks Nick. Nick shoots him and kills him dead. And so from then on, Nick starts to head towards Nebraska. And the reason he's heading towards Nebraska is because when the bullies whooped his ass and knocked him out, he had his first little vision of Mother Abigail, like as he gets KO'd. And he's in Nebraska. He sees her. And she's just like, hey, Nick, why don't you come on down, Nebraska? Anyway, Nick comes on down to Nebraska is what he decides he's going to do and visit Mother Abigail. He sees her in the dream. The dream's hilarious because, so Nick's deaf and dumb, obviously. As soon as he pops up in the dream, it's just Rob Lowe, and he's just like, I can talk and I can hear. And it's like, all right. Do we need that? It almost felt like he was going to be like, and I can sing. Some really fucking lame shit like that. If The Stand was going to be a musical, that's where that part would kick off. It would just be Rob Lowe breaking into a musical number in this fake-ass cornfield in Nebraska. So that's where we'll move on from Nick. Who the fuck is next? Okay, so now we're up in here with Larry Underwood. We got Larry Underwood, the rock star, the musician. Baby, Can You Dig Your Man? He's entered the picture. And so Larry is in a bit of trouble. He got in some trouble doing drugs, spending too much money, being a damn rock star, doing the Nickelback thing. And he decides, I better go live with my mom for a while until all this cools off and I can make some more damn money. So Larry, he's greeted with his mother out on the East Coast. I believe they're in New York. There's a lot of scenes that are shot on location here. And it looks great. It looks fantastic. That's one thing that I really loved about this miniseries is that pretty much everything except for Mother Abigail's dream sequences are shot on location. And I think some of those, whenever she's in RL, which we'll get to soon enough, are shot in Nebraska, which I thought was really cool. So anyway, Larry, he goes and he meets his mom, and you can tell right away that his mom kind of knows that he's a bit of a shyster. He's a bit of a scumbag. And we get a lot more of that in the book. You find out what happens when Larry's blowing up in the music scene and how he kind of mistreats people. And you even get some backstory on how he like kind of fucked over one of his friends in a really just kind of shitty way where he like bitched the friend out for like $20 that he borrowed from him, and he like was really hounding him about it, you know. And the guy's like, hey man, I fucking lend you money all the time when you don't have money for the movies or when we go out to eat and all this other shit, and now you need your $20 back like it's the end of the fucking world or something. Well, fuck you, motherfucker. We're not friends anymore, Larry, you son of a bitch. But that's in the book, and we're talking about the miniseries, so kind of gloss over a lot of that stuff. And that's kind of how it is with several other characters, where you're just kind of like landing in this situation where it's like, it's the end of the world. This is what's going on. You kind of get the gist of who they are and, you know, who is their daddy and what do they do kind of thing. So anyway, Larry he starts living with his mom again. He's going all over town, thinking he's some sort of big shit, hot star, fucking rocker. And he's over at the bar. He runs into the Rat Man for just a brief interaction. The Rat Man's a side character that we'll get into that I believe pops up later in the story as well. I know in the book he does. I can't remember if he's in the miniseries later on, but I'm assuming he probably is. Why else would they have him here? Larry bumps into him and the Rat Man forgives him. This time, it's a little menacing, I will say. The Rat Man's a little bit of a menacing character. He looks like he would commit a crime or two. But Larry, he calls back in California. He calls his girlfriend or whatever over there, and she's like, hey man, shit's popping off over here. I'm working at the damn casino or something right now, and there's not a single guy in sight. There's not a single living soul in sight, which is super unusual. Captain Trips is fucking bumping down here. And Larry's like, oh shit, that doesn't sound very good. Anyway, I'm going to take you out to a hot breakfast when I get back there, and we're going to party hard. We're going to party our nuts off. We're going to party till our cocks and balls fall off when I get back to California is what Larry's thinking. And this is one of the moments, I feel like there's some moments with some of Larry's line delivery, much like many of the other characters, all maybe except Stu, except for Gary Sinise. I feel like he's kind of hits a flawless victory as far as the line deliveries go. But it's almost like everybody has a couple like Mortal Kombat Annihilation moments in this miniseries and this 6-hour-long movie that we're going through here, which, you know, I don't mind it too much. It is what it is. I can take a drip of Mortal Kombat Annihilation in my movie, a little drip of some MKA acting in my movie. The problem with MKA is that the whole movie is 100% Mortal Kombat Annihilation. But if you got a movie like this where it's mostly good and it's got some little dog shit scenes or some like shitty line deliveries, you just got to kind of roll with them, you know, and that happens a few times in this. Overall, though, I like the portrayal of Larry in this. There was a couple moments like with some of the line deliveries that I was unsure about. Like, is this going to work? In the book, I mean, Larry's one of the best characters in my opinion. Like, he definitely hits the top 5, maybe even the top 3 of all the characters in the book. So I was curious. It's another thing where I was just like, how are they going to pull this off? I think he does an okay job. I think like so far from what I've seen, I think he does a pretty good job. There's also, I think this is where we get a really great Flu Buddy commercial. And this is something where like, as the movie was going on, like I'm just going to go ahead and show you a little behind the scenes here. So I've got the, can you see that all right? I've got the Stand 94 Stephen King series on the VHS tape that my mom filmed off of cable or whatever when I was a kid. So it's got all the OG commercials and everything. Pretty fantastic. But there's a Flu Buddy commercial, which is basically just like, you know, everyone's getting sick. Get your fucking Flu Buddy and stuff. As this commercial kicks in, though, it feels like a real commercial. Like the way it's filmed and everything and the way it's acted, it looks just like a real commercial. And it threw me off for a second where I was thinking like, holy shit, is this one of the commercials like in real life from that time? It's fantastic. It's really well done. Just one of the little touches in this movie that I really enjoyed. I think Mick Garris did a great job with this. Mick Garris also did Critters 2. Also wrote the movie Hocus Pocus. I'm a huge fan of Mick Garris. I think he's an underrated dude for sure. Underrated director, just off Critters 2 alone. I mean, that's an all-timer for me. Very pivotal movie when I was growing up. Let's see. So then we see Larry. He's living with his mom. His mom dies a similar fate to, I would say, most people in this movie. She just gets really sick. The way they make the sick people look is extremely effective. Like, their skin looks all sore. Like it looks like it's covered in like rashes and it's very like slimy looking. They just look like they've been sweating their asses off, you know, and just very drawn out. The effects in this are actually really, really good, I would say. I think that's why some of those hospital scenes really stuck with me when I was a kid, because the effects are very disturbing. They're very unsettling. And that's kind of what happens with Larry's mom. She's fucking doing that thing where she'll be like laying flat in bed, just like, Larry, tell your dad. You know, she's like hallucinating about his dad and stuff like that still being alive, like, go get your dad and stuff. And then she'll just sit up and be like, oh fuck, you know, I'm dying. And then she's dead. And so his mom dies too, and he's kind of like, fuck, what the hell do I do now? The one thing, and there are some other scenes with Larry in the book where he like kind of like hooks up with another lady or something, and she, you know, she's kind of like wanting to make it serious, and he's just like, no, I'm out of here. And she throws a bunch of shit at him. We don't need to talk about the book. Why do I keep doing that? We'll do a whole episode on the book once we're done with this. We're doing the mini series. I got to stay focused. Fuck. I got to focus up on this shit. Lock in. Mini series time. Forget about the book right now. It's just the book's so good. God damn it. So anyway, Larry's mom dies. He's just like, he's having dreams about Mother Abigail too, and he's just like, damn, bitch, I gotta get to Nebraska and I gotta meet this fucking lady. He's probably wanting to do some harmonized guitar licks with her, like Avenged Sevenfold, and go back to back with her ass on the front porch. You know what I'm saying? Because she's shredding too all the time. In any of her dreams, she's playing like Jesus loves the little children, Jesus is my friend, and all this stuff. Really get great stuff with Mother Abigail. And since we're talking about her so much, might as well just move right into some Mother Abigail. So we're, like I said, we kind of see her in these dream sequences. We see her in Nick's dream sequence. We see her in, I think, Larry's and Stu's as well. You know, I can't remember if there's any more other than that. But we're seeing a lot of her. But then we finally meet her in real life, which is great. And the way they do it, I think, is just a big, you know, a salute to Stephen King, because the first thing she's talking about is her fucking big ass shits that she's been taking. She walks right out of the outhouse and she says, Lord, oh, them prunes, thanks for the valuable BM that I just made. And it's like, what else? What else do you expect from a Stephen King story than some stinky BM talk? And this is the first time we're seeing like the human version of Mother Abigail, because everything else, these visions and dreams that everyone's having, it's like she knows that all these people are being drawn to her, and she kind of knows that God is like speaking through her. But at the same time, I don't think she like really understands how much this is happening or how like, I don't think she's aware of the people talking to her in the dreams. You know what I mean? She's probably dreaming of them too, and maybe that's how she knows. It doesn't really go into it in great detail, but I just kind of assume that like maybe Mother Abigail's having dreams about the people that are going to visit her, as well as the Dark Man. Because when we see her, she sits down on the porch, and this is in real life, and she's like jamming out on the guitar, playing, you know, Jesus is my friend. And then she sees the Dark Man, which is we'll get into the Dark Man, obviously. She sees the Dark Man, Randall Flagg, and he's just kind of staring at her in the corn, and his face is all shrouded in black, you know, like in shadows. And she's like, holy fuck, you know? She's like, what the fuck is you doing here, bitch? And she's kind of, you know, and then he's just like, your blood is in my hands. And he starts squeezing his fucking hands really tight, and blood starts coming out of his hands. And she just keeps like strumming even harder. She's like, Jesus is my friend and shit. And blood just starts shooting out of her hands all over the guitar. And she looks down and she's like, fuck. She's like, what are you doing to me, bud? Get out of my cornfield, you know? And then he disappears. The blood disappears. And she's like, shit, this is getting fucking serious. Like, we're really getting into some damn devil shit up in this bitch. Like, the world's coming to an end. These people are coming here on some sort of like, you know, religious war mission that we're going on, and the devil's in the damn cornfield. So what are we going to do about it? Anyway, that's pretty much all I'm going to say about Mother Abigail for episode number 1. So now let's get into some of the other characters. I kind of put these under bad guys, and as far as you can tell in the miniseries, they're bad guys. I will say, once again, in the book, they're much more layered characters, but the main bad guy, Randall Flagg, we'll just go ahead and get into him. He's played by Jamie Sheridan. Honestly, in episode 1, I will say that like he's more of like almost a background thing, like a background figure, where it's like, I love that they don't really like show his face in clear view too much. For the most part, you don't really see his face. It's always like kind of shadowed. It's really effective. And that was something that kind of surprised me, because I kind of remembered what this guy looked like from when I was a kid and the first time I saw it. But the way they show Randall Flagg at the beginning, I think is really cool. And you know that he's evil. There's several scenes where he's got like glowing red eyes and shit. And it's just kind of like, this motherfucker's about to do some devil shit. Almost like he could have been, if Danzig was taller, they could have put Danzig in there to play Randall Flagg. I think that would have been pretty cool, actually. They just would have had to put his ass on stilts, because if he's not taller than anyone else around him, including maybe Mother Abigail, I don't know if I would have been that, you know. I guess he's got magic and shit, but still, it's just one of those things, you know. Like, if he's that much shorter than everybody, it's kind of like, who's this fucking pipsqueak? I think the devil would have hired somebody a little taller. Anyway, we'll move right on to Lloyd. So, because I think if you're going to talk about Randall Flagg, you kind of got to talk about Lloyd as far as episode 1 goes. So we meet Lloyd, Lloyd Henreid, I think is his last name. And this guy's played by Miguel Ferrer. And I recognize this guy as one of the FBI agents from Twin Peaks. He's the guy that he comes into town and he's like, very by the book, and fucking Harry gets all pissed off at him and punches him and stuff like that. That's this guy. And I was like, okay, yeah, I recognize this guy from all sorts of shit. Very good as Lloyd. So Lloyd and Poke, they're basically just these two criminals, and we see them on this like criminal road trip. And I think this is before Captain Trips has really like wiped everybody out, because they just like roll up to this gas station and start fucking blasting, and they're like, you know, everybody give us your money or whatever. But like Lloyd just machine guns this motherfucker to death like instantly. And then they get into the shootout. There's already like a cop there that just happens to be there, and the cop fucking shoots Poke to death. Lloyd takes off out of there, but the cops, they catch his ass right away and they slam him into the ground. As they're arresting him, he looks up and he sees Randall Flagg sitting on a telephone pole, and he's kind of like, what the fuck? There's a guy up there. But then he turns into a crow, and the cops are like, shut up, bitch. You're going to jail and shit. So Lloyd gets thrown in jail, and it's one of the interesting character arcs is just like Lloyd in general. Some of the more interesting character arcs in the story overall, I will say. And I'm basing that off of the book, like I said. God damn it. The book. God damn, can't stop fucking talking about the book. Captain Trips hasn't blown up to the full extent that it has in the rest of these character stories when we meet Lloyd. So he gets thrown into prison, and when he's in prison, everybody dies, and he's immune. So he's just stuck in prison with nobody to let his ass out. So he's just like, you know, help me and shit, and he ends up eating rats. In the book, he eats like his cellmates, or not his cellmate, but the guy next to him. He can like reach his arm or his leg or something. So he eats that guy's leg and shit. And then Randall Flagg comes rolling up to him, and he's just like, well, what do we have here, you know? And I thought this whole interaction was great between Randall Flagg and Lloyd, because obviously Lloyd is confused as fuck about what's going on. He hasn't seen a guard, another prisoner. He hasn't heard anybody for who knows how long at this point, long enough to where he's eating raw rats. So this guy comes rolling up in a jean jacket and boots and tight ass jean pants and stuff, and he's just like, what's going on, partner? He says, looks like you're in some deep caca, which I love that line. I thought that was fantastic. You know, cutting around saying the big swear bombs for the made for TV type of shit, which I always enjoy that. Any kind of like edited for TV stuff, it's fantastic. It cracks me up how they're just like, well, we can't say shit. But he might say caca in the book, actually, now that I think about it. I think that's like a Stephen King thing. Caca. Excuse me. I think the first time I heard the word caca was by The Rock in WWF. I think he used to say that sometimes. It's kind of like when you find out that dookie means shit, and you're like, oh, Green Day, you guys are so clever. Snuck in a little cuss word there on your CD. So anyway, basically Randall Flagg, he does this thing where he pulls out a rock, like a black rock, and he puts it on the top of his hand, like right here. And then his hand bends backward all the way and folds it up like he's doing this, but he's doing it like this. And that was a really cool effect too, actually. I didn't remember that. I wasn't expecting it, and I was kind of like, whoa, fuck yeah, they fucking made that shit look cool as hell. So he's like, hey bud, you're going to be high up in my ranks as long as you come with me and you're loyal. And Lloyd's like, say less, bud. I don't want to eat any more fucking rats. I don't want to do any of this bullshit. I've been stuck in prison with no food or anything for who knows how long now, just drinking the fucking toilet water probably and eating dead rat shit. So Randall Flagg lets him out. I can't remember if there's any other cool shit with that. I just thought that whole interaction was cool, and it kind of gives you an idea of like Randall Flagg almost comes off as very sinister, but also he's just kind of like joking around and fucking around with Lloyd the whole time. So I like that. I thought Jamie Sheridan did a really good job as Randall Flagg. And so the other one, the trash can man that I mentioned, we run into him, and he's kind of receiving like messages in his head from Randall Flagg, basically just kind of like telling him like, hey, motherfucker, come to Las Vegas, and you're also going to be higher up in my ranks and stuff like that. But when we first run into Trash Can Man, he's fucking in Indiana or something, and he runs into this big old, I don't know, like a big fuel thing, and he blows it up, basically. And you just kind of like get a summary of the Trash Can Man. Basically, he's this guy who was sent to Terre Haute Correctional Facility or something like that, mental hospital or some shit, where he was like really badly abused, and I think electroshock therapy his ass and stuff like that. And so now he just likes blowing shit up. He likes fire and he likes blowing shit up. I think he always kind of liked that, but now it's like they took that knob and they just fucking cranked it all the way up. So he blows this like refinery up or something like that by shoving a fucking bomb into it and runs away. And after that, he just walks from wherever the fuck he is. I can't remember if it's Indiana or not, but it's something like that. He walks all the way from there to Las Vegas so he can go join Randall Flagg's army. Community, I guess. Not really an army yet or anything. I don't know if it ever becomes an army, but it is different. And I would say that's going to kind of sum up part one, you know. So we've introduced all the characters. We kind of get a look at their backstory and how they're all coming to be on this journey to the West. Let's see. Some other honorable mentions. I talked about Joe Bob Briggs already, but there's also Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the big ass basketball player. I love seeing him in movies, him branching out. I think he was in Enter the Dragon as well. So it's always fun seeing him pop up. He is the monster shouter in New York. So he runs into Larry in New York and he's basically just like, the devil's coming. And he like gets in Larry's face and he's like, the devil's coming, bitch, Larry. And Larry's kind of like, what the fuck? How do you know my name and shit? And when we first see Randall Flagg makes him have a heart attack for some reason. He's just like, man, fuck that guy. Wish he would shut the fuck up. So he like does a thing to his nipples. He's like, really like tweaks him. And that makes Kareem have a heart attack and die. Also, Kathy Bates. So when we're with Franny and her dad are listening to the radio and we hear, all these news reports about people basically trying to get the word out that like this Captain Tripp shit's not good. It's real bad and everyone's dying. You need to stay inside. You need to, take care of yourself and don't trust the government right now because they're killing people and stuff like that. And so she's reporting on that shit and basically the military busts in. It's Kathy Bates as Ray Flowers, a radio announcer. And at this point, they've seen some headlines about Captain Tripp's, Franny and her dad have, but they're kind of like, what the fuck's going on? And Franny's really like in denial about it. She's like, this isn't real, is it? And the dad's like, I think it is. And then they just start fucking blasting Ray Flowers with machine guns. And that really like hits them as like, this shit's fucking serious, yo. So I think that covers all the bases for part one. A lot of my thoughts and feelings. We'll go ahead and just run down part two. In part two, we start seeing more of these characters' dreams, more of their journey. They start meeting up with some other characters. Like I said earlier, Lloyd joins Flagg. That's a big one. Stu, he runs into Glenn Bateman. So Glenn Bateman's this old guy. And this is a really interesting choice for how they have Stu and Glenn meet each other. So he just basically walks up behind Glenn and he has a fucking assault rifle. And Glenn's outside of his house that he's at and he's painting his picture with his dog. I think it's Kojak. I have to look that up to be sure, but he's basically just like rolls up on him with a rifle and Glenn's just kind of like, hey, what's going on there, bud? And Stu's like, not much. How you doing, old guy, old timer? Because Glenn's like 80 years old and shit in this. I think he's more like 50 in the book. And then they're just kind of like, sweet, let's hang out. Let's be fucking buds. And they do that. They just kind of hang out at Glenn's house. Glenn's like, I've been having dreams about the old black lady too. And Stu's like, damn, are you serious? And he's like, and also the fucking evil guy. And Stu's like, holy shit, brother. This is crazy. And so they're like, we need to team up and you need to come with me. And then Glenn's like, fuck yeah, let's do it. But right before they leave, they're getting ready to go on this little trip out to Boulder, Colorado. Harold and Franny just drive up on motorcycles. And so we haven't seen anything from Harold and Franny really, other than they're wanting to go to the disease control center that Stu was at when they were fucking doing all the tests on him, the place that Stu escaped from. So they're headed out west too. And they just happen to drive up on Stu and Glenn, which is kind of an odd choice because it just is. It just feels like, okay, so they just drove by this guy's house. I guess it must be a pretty inviting house if Stu just walked up there from wherever the fuck he's coming from, because Stu's on foot at this point, and Franny and Harold are on hogs. They got big hogs. This is where Franny gets off the hog and she's just like, ooh, my butt's got fucking calluses on it now or something. She's like, I'm always going to have a callousy ass after this. And it's just kind of like, nice, very cool. And Harold went from wearing like a jogger suit that has like cum stains all over it to wearing assless chaps with jeans underneath them and like a studded leather jacket which is, there's no transition into it. He just decides, well, it's the end of the world. I might as well try to look as fucking cool as possible. I'm just going to go full Mad Max Thunderdome on this shit. He's probably got a metal cock piece underneath those leather pants or whatever that he's wearing. He's probably raided the cock pump factory, and he's just been juicing up his hog for Franny. He's trying to fuck Franny. Everyone knows that, right? We learned about that in part 1. So anyway, they team up, and Harold is suspicious of Stu. He doesn't think that Glenn is going to steal Franny from him because Glenn's 80 years old. Although he should be worried about Glenn too, because as fucking goofball shit as Harold is, Glenn would probably steal Fran from him as well. I don't think he has much of a chance. But he knows right away. He's like, here's fucking young Gary Sinise up in here. He's going to steal fucking Franny from my ass. I have no chance in hell. And so he's kind of like, I don't know if we should go with him. We probably shouldn't trust these guys, especially this one. And he like points at Stu, and Stu's kind of like, he catches it right away. He pulls him to the side. He's like, listen, bud, I'm not trying to cut in or anything like that. And Harold's kind of like, really? I thought you would, I thought you'd fucking give me a wedgie and stuff my head in the toilet, swirly my ass, and take my bitch. But Stu's like, trust me, brother, I am not going to do that. It's just hilarious because it's exactly what he does. But it is like, it's more natural, It's not like Franny has to, Harold thinks that like Franny has to be with him for basically just because it's the end of the world and they're friends, or, they knew each other beforehand. So he's just kind of like, she's mine, And it's even worse in the book as far as that stuff goes. This whole interaction where they first meet is even more intense. But anyway, Harold believes him. Stu hands out beers. Franny doesn't take a beer. And I think this is like foreshadowing into something that we learn about later that we know instantly in the book. And that is that Franny is pregnant. And I think this is a little more confusing in the miniseries from what I remember. Because when I was reading the book, I do remember thinking like, okay, yeah, I remember thinking that she was pregnant with Stu's baby. But in the book right away, when she talks to her old boyfriend, Jesse, from the beginning part, she's like, I'm pregnant with your baby and shit. And so in the book, the whole time, she's pregnant. And that it's with Jesse's baby. But in this one, they haven't talked about it yet. But the fact that she turns down the beer, and I think she turns down like any kind of like prescription medication or something like that as well. I think it's kind of hinting that she is pregnant, but they've not talked about it at all. And she didn't talk about it with her dad either. It's a bigger deal in the book because her mom and dad are both alive in the book, and she kind of gets into it with both of them about the pregnancy. Obviously causes a lot of tension. So they decide, you know what? Fuck it. We're teaming up. We're all going to Boulder, Colorado together because, strength in numbers. We're all pretty cool here. We're all pretty trustworthy except for Harold because look at his fucking ass. But Harold's like, no, I need to go to the sickness center. And Stu's like, you don't want to go there, bitch. I was just there and they try to fucking kill me and shit. And there's just a bunch of dead guys like rotting everywhere and shit. And he's kind of like, no, I want to go anyway because I don't trust your ass, East Texas. And so they go, and Harold walks out of there, puking his little ass off. He's like, that was disgusting. And Stu's like, I told you, motherfucker. Now let's go to Boulder, Colorado and meet up with this fucking old bitch. And they're like, fair enough. One thing that I think I need to touch back on from the first part, and we've jumped around from part 1 to part 2, almost as if they're one episode in itself, but I think that's all right. One thing I didn't really touch on is while Captain Trips is going on, you're constantly getting these little shots with Ed Harris, who's one of the military guys, basically just talking about how out of control this thing's getting. And it gets to the point where him and his next in command, they're getting really worried, and Ed Harris just blasts himself. He shoots himself. And I think it's just worth noting because I think it's Ed Harris anyway. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's who it is. It's the guy from the Truman Show who's like calling all the shots on Truman. But he does a great job in it. I just realized that I totally skipped over that whole thing. And it is like a really interesting spot to see like where the people behind the scenes are at with Captain Trips and how they're kind of dealing with the situation. They're not handling it well, I'll say that. But it does make you wonder because like those characters, the Ray Flowers character, and even like Poke and some of those people, like you kind of wonder, would those people have ended up being immune? Because at the time that we see them, they're not showing any symptoms like before they get killed in all these different ways, before they kill themselves, before they get shot. It does kind of make you wonder like how many of these people are being gunned down before they've even had a chance to find out if they're immune or not. So just had to touch on that. I don't think it would be right to talk about this story without going into some of the other military stuff that goes on early in it. Next, we'll catch up with Nick Andros, our deaf mute that we got going on here. And this is where Nick Andros meets his partner in crime. And his partner in crime, his name is Tom Cullen. And this is going to be one of the, this is going to be an interesting character to talk about, if you know what I'm saying. If you know about Tom Cullen, you know. The way they describe him in the miniseries is that he's slightly retarded. And I'll just go ahead and leave it at that, because I would say that's probably right. He can't read, he can't write. So when he meets up with Nick, he doesn't know what the fuck Nick's writing down on the paper. He's trying to tell him his name and shit, and he's like, sorry, bud, I don't know how to fucking read. And you know, it takes him forever to figure out that Nick can't hear or talk, but when he does, he's super excited. And Tom Cullen's an amazing character. It's hard to say. I feel like every character I talk about, I'm just like one of my favorite characters in the book, because they're all so well done. They're all so well written. And Tom Cullen's no exception. I feel like the book wouldn't be the same without him. It's the reason why this book is so great and why this story is so great, because of all these characters. So anyway, they get together. They quickly kind of talk about what's going on as best as they can. And Nick's like, hey, Tom, I'm riding my bike to Boulder, Colorado because I've been having the dreams. And Tom's like, I've been having the dreams too. The old lady, the scary guy. He's like, get on your bike and ride, motherfucker. We're going to go to Boulder, Colorado. So they start riding. Tom Cullen apparently gets into an apple trough of some sort, or he like raids an apple tree or something, eats so many apples that he gets diarrhea, or I'm assuming he's getting diarrhea because it's Stephen King. I don't think Stephen King would write like a constipated character unless it was like once the constipation breaks and they're just having the biggest, grossest shit of their lives, or they're like clogging up the toilet or something. You know what I'm saying? It's a Stephen King story, so there's going to be descriptive shit in there. Descriptive shits. Tom Cullen has a BM is what this chapter is called. So he's just like, oh, my fucking tummy and stuff. And Nick's like, hang here a second. I'm going to go get you some Pepto. So he runs in, and this is where we run into what I would consider like maybe another either like somewhat bad character. This is Julie Lowry. And Julie Lowry is played by Shawnee Smith, who I think is most notable for being the lady in the Saw movie that has the reverse bear trap on her head. I don't remember if they ever talk about how old Julie Lowry is in the movie, but in the book, she's 16. Also, so like Nick meets her. He's like, hey, I got a friend out there. I'm nice and stuff, and I'm deaf and I can't talk and shit like that. And she's like, oh, cool. And she does a fantastic job in this movie. Shawnee Smith does a great job as Julie Lowry. It made me like the character a lot more than I did in the book. Like right away, I was kind of like this, like Julie Lowry sucks, you know. But it does throw an interesting curve into the story and stuff like that. But Shawnee Smith does a great job. She's like super excited to see somebody. And she instantly starts trying to fuck Nick, and Nick's just kind of like, whoa. And she's like, damn, you got a big cock and stuff like that. And he's just kind of like, cool, but he's like, nah, we can't be fucking, you know what I'm saying? We can't fuck in the drugstore right now with my special friends out there with a tummy ache. I got to go get him the Pepto. And she's kind of like really put off by this. She's like, are you fucking joking me? Here's the thing though. In the book, Nick straight up bones her ass. In the book, Nick fucks Julie Lowry, even though he knows that she's 16 years old. He's just like, whatever. It's the end of the world. But Rob Lowe was probably like, I'm not doing that. I can't remember what it was, but Rob Lowe had some sort of scandal going on around this time. I didn't look into it, but it's something about him fucking somebody, probably somebody that maybe he shouldn't have been fucking, if you know what I'm saying. I don't know. Anyway, so he says, no, I got to take care of Tom Cullen. He's got the shits. He's got the diarrhea shits, and he's about to shit his bib overalls off of his body if I don't give him this fucking Pepto-Bismol anytime now. So she's like, whatever. He goes out there, and she like comes out after him, and she's kind of like pissy, She's like, he wouldn't fuck me, so I'm mad. So she's over Nick Andros' shoulder, and she's telling Tom Cullen, she's like, don't drink it, Tom. It's poison, And Tom's like, oh, fuck, poison. My papa told me not to have a drink, poison, They do the thing with Tom Cullen where it's like the, don't go full retard kind of thing. Like I said, they describe him as slightly retarded. And, yeah. It's the Tropic Thunder magic of it all, the Robert Downey Jr. suggestion in that movie. So they pull that off pretty well. He does have an insane bowl haircut. It rivals Harry from Dumb and Dumber, or Lloyd, right? Yeah. It rivals Lloyd's bowl cut from Dumb and Dumber. It's very straight and very shiny and almost looks like a little crooked, like he's been doing it himself, if you know what I'm saying. So anyway, Nick, he calms him down. He's like, hey, this shit's not poison. It's going to help out your belly, hon. You need to fucking drink this shit. And he points the gun at Julie Lowry and he's just like, get out of here, bitch. We do not need your ass in our fucking crew. We're going to Boulder, Colorado. Get the fuck out of our face. And she's just like, oh, really, motherfuckers? You're going to be sorry. And she runs off crying and they're kind of like, dumbass bitch, fucking see you later, hit the fucking road, bitch, and stuff like that. And then a second later, she's out of a window shooting a rifle at him and they're just like, holy shit, we got to get the fuck out of here. Luckily, she misses him, but she's like doing the Xenia warrior princess call at them and stuff and blasting and just like going nuts. And it's one of those things where you're just like, I wonder if she was actually trying to kill them or missing on purpose, because some of those shots do come pretty close. And it's like, was she really going to blast them over that interaction? She's evil ass bitch. Damn. Sorry. That was a fucking Randall Flagg burp. Get out. So now let's jump over to Larry. Larry meets this lady named Nadine, and Nadine has like blackish gray hair. Larry's kind of like, hell yeah, this rules. I'm going to this lady's going to be my fucking girlfriend and shit like that, I think. And he's like, why don't we team up and go somewhere? Go to fucking Boulder, Colorado and shit. And she's kind of like, okay. And Nadine's a little weird. You kind of get it right off the bat. There's something a little off about Nadine. And she's popping pills all the time, but they end up going out west together. They start their journey. Quickly, they run into the Lincoln Tunnel, which is one of the most suspenseful scenes in the book, and they do a pretty good job with it here. But at the same time, I feel like they kind of rush it. I feel like they could have played up some of the horror and some of the suspense in this scene. But Larry, basically they get into a fight right before then because Nadine's like, I cannot go in that dark ass tunnel, Larry. Let's just go around. And he's like, bullshit. He's like, I'm going through there. If you didn't want to go through there, you should have told me that a long time ago. Fuck, this is nuts. And so she's like, all right, I'm going the long way. And he's like, have fun getting raped and murdered on 7th Street, you idiot. And she's just like, fine. And so she goes, they split up. He starts going through the Lincoln Tunnel by himself, and there's just all these dead bodies and shit, and he won't stop looking at him. He keeps telling himself, don't look at the damn bodies, but he can't help himself. Eventually, one of the bodies looks at him and is like, how you doing, Larry, or some shit like that, and he's like, ha! But then looks back and the body's not actually alive or moving or anything or talking to him, and he's kind of like, phew, I'm losing it. But then he hears something. It's Nadine. She's back, and she's just like, hey, yeah, I've made a mistake. I'm actually going to team up with you now and stuff again. He's like, all right. So they go on. They get through the tunnel. They get through New Jersey. They're kind of camping around and shit, and basically they're almost about to bang a lot of the time. They're kind of getting hot and heavy, but she keeps being like, I can't bang you, Larry. This isn't gonna be good. But they're they're kind of humping around with mesh shorts on and stuff like that, rubbing on each other. And then when they fall, but she's like, Larry, I cannot do sex with you tonight or ever. So let's just forget about it. And he's like, all right. So they go to bed. And when she goes to bed, she has a crazy dream. This whole chapter is called Dreams, so everybody's having crazy dreams and shit. And she dreams that she's in the desert with Randall Flagg, and he's just like, oh, yeah, we're married now, bitch. And she's just like, cool, okay, that sounds good. And he's just like, you need to leave him. And this is a pretty cool scene because his eyes turn into little black dots, like he's got them fucking Limp Bizkit contacts in, and he's just like, leave him. And then she flashes back and she wakes up and she's like, holy fuck. And so she leaves Larry a little note and basically says Larry, I had to leave or else we were going to have sex and that would not have been good. Anyway, see you later, alligator. I'll see your ass in hell, because that's where we're going. That's where the story's going. And so that was one of the dreams that we see there. I can't remember when this happens exactly. There's another dream that happens with Stu that I feel like is worth mentioning because he sees Mother Abigail. For some reason, he's not wearing a shirt. He's just walking through the cornfield without a shirt on. And if you know about cornfields, them shits will slice you up big time. So anyway, but it's a dream, so who gives a fuck? He's walking through the cornfield shirtless and he sees her and he's just like, hey, Mother Abigail, what's up? And she's just like, hey, Stuart, how you doing, honey? And he's like, oh, pretty good. Just fucking hanging out in the corn, And then he looks down and he's like, fuck, oh, shit, there's a bunch of rats on my feet. And she's just like, oh, yeah, it's the dark man. He's here too. And so he takes off running through the corn again. And then when he turns around, he's like in, I think at the hospital, like he's back in the hospital. And he sees this guy with like his eyes fucking punched out and like blood spitting out of his mouth. And he's just like, get out of here, Stu, or something. He's like, turn around, motherfucker. Don't go to fucking Boulder, Colorado. And Stu's like, oh shit. And so he runs away. And then Randall Flagg just like steps out of the doorway, like right in his face. And this is something I haven't been able to get the captions on, while I'm watching this. There's no captions available, unfortunately. But I swear, like, Randall Flagg steps out in front of him and just goes, the plague. And I was like, what? What the fuck does that mean? Why would he say that? But the more I was thinking about it, I was like, maybe he said like stay away or something like that. He doesn't want him to meet up with Mother Abigail. He doesn't want this like powerful force of good to combat his evil mission that he's on. You know what I'm saying? But if he just said the plague, which I'm gonna have to look that up at some point, that was maybe one of the goofiest fucking, it made me laugh because I was like, why would he just step out and say the plague in his face like that? Just to spook him? Just to scare him? Does he think that's gonna scare Stu Redmond? He's got another thing coming, Randall Flagg. More like Randall. We got past Larry and Nadine. Mother Abigail, they find her. Nick Andros finds her with Tom Cullen and some other people, like another couple and a little girl or something. And they're just like, here we are, time to go. But she's like, first, let's have a meal. So they have a big feast and stuff. They break bread together and they stay the night at Mother Abigail's house. And this is probably one of the only other moments where you kind of see Mother Abigail as a human and not just like a supernatural religious force or whatever to be dealt with. And so she's really upset because she's like, I don't want to leave my damn cabin. She's got this like really like Amish style way of life that she's been doing for 106 years now. So she's sad that she has to leave and move to Boulder, Colorado to this mysterious basically like mission that they're on. And so they pack all their shit and they got, I think a few other people maybe show up with another vehicle or maybe not yet. But anyway, they've got a couple trucks there. And this is one of the moments that just like fucking cracked me up because as they're getting ready to leave, she's like, I can't believe I'm leaving. And they're just kind of like, yeah. Nick's like, sorry, Mother A. Sorry, big time, dog. And then they help her up in the truck. And you think like, first of all, what are they doing? Because they're like lifting her into the bed of the truck, like the back. And you see that her rocking chair is just like ratchet strapped down. And she just sits in it and they take off driving with a 106-year-old woman in the back of a truck sitting on a rocking chair that's held together by ratchet straps. And it's just like, you couldn't have given Mother Abigail a shotgun, you motherfuckers, you stupid bastards. What if she goes flying out of the back of that thing? She's 106. She's extremely frail. There's no way she's surviving that. So anyway, they take off to Boulder, Colorado. We kind of see them begin the free zone. More people start arriving. More people are having cool dreams and bad dreams. And they're just like, yeah, we're doing it. We're doing the free zone. This is going to be great. And we also cut over and we see the juxtaposition of Randall Flagg's Las Vegas. And Randall Flagg's Las Vegas kind of looks like a Rammstein music video or even like a Korn music video or something. There's just like trash everywhere and like fucking, a bunch of goofy shit going on. A bunch of like Tank Abbott looking fellas running around doing shit. But we see it for a second. We also see the trash can man arrive to Las Vegas at this time, and he's just like, hell yeah, I'm so happy to be here. He falls into the fountain. He crashes into a casino. We see Lloyd and a group of guys playing cards at the casino, and they're kind of like, should we get rid of that motherfucker? He looks fucked up because trash can man is covered in sunburns. He's basically wearing like a diaper on the outside of his pants, just like full of shit because he's just been walking through the desert for like months now. Who knows how long. But Lloyd's like, no, we're not doing shit to him because Randall Flagg said he's special. We got to make sure we take good care of him or something like that. And then one of the guys is kind of like, where the hell is Flagg anyway? And he's like, oh, why? Do you want to go talk to him? And he's just kind of like, no, sorry I asked. I don't want to go talk to him because I don't want him to turn me into a fucking frog or something because he's like magic or whatever. So let me think. that's pretty much wraps up part 2. That's part 1 and part 2 in a nutshell. I think I kind of covered all the bases there. Yeah, I think so. I'm sure there's probably some things that I'm missing, but those are all the main things that kind of stood out to me. Basically what we're leading into at this point is that the Boulder Free Zone is going to be more of a democracy, and the Las Vegas area is going to be more of like an authoritarian style of government run by Randall Flagg and his cronies, I guess you would say, his like members, his followers. And that is something that's like way different. And I think we'll probably get into that more as this goes on, is that like from what we're seeing in Las Vegas in the movie, it's very like stereotypical evil. It feels like a wasteland almost, you know what I mean? Or just like this like post-apocalyptic, like typical, almost like Mad Max style of living situation that we got going on here, where it feels a lot more like lawless in a way. Although I'm curious to see how they do that, because in the book, they're almost like very similar, where when you see Boulder, Colorado, you see them grow in the society based off of the one that we were currently living in before the plague, and how it's functioning and everyone's kind of getting along, and people are being good to each other, and I think they're just happy to have more people around and stuff like that, and like a return to normalcy, if you will. But in the Las Vegas in the book, it's fairly similar, other than Randall Flagg is more harsh about punishment, I'll say. I'm curious to see how we go into that as this goes on, because in the book, he's just like, if someone does drugs, he just fucking kills him. He'll like crucify him. Basically, if someone steps out of line in any way, he's just going to smoke him. But other than that, there's like a lot of really nice, smart people that end up in Las Vegas as well. And they're all more or less getting along. It's a very civilized situation that you got going on in Las Vegas as well, that doesn't seem that much different than Boulder, other than who you have leading it and how that leadership is being presented. So that's it. Part 1 and 2 of The Stand, the miniseries. We got it done. Join me next week for part 3 and 4 of The Stand. If you haven't read the book yet, get started, because after that we're going to start getting into the book. We'll start talking about that too. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.